Welcome to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Del challenges the status quo, questions everything, and empowers you to return to your core beliefs to make your life better. If you're ready to hear the truth and get your roadmap to the lifestyle you really want, the next hour will change your life. And now, your host, self-made millionaire, national award-winning investor of the year, CEO and founder of Lifestyles Unlimited, Del Walmsley.
Welcome to the Del Walmsley Radio Show, where the hype ends and the help begins. I'm your host, Del Walmsley, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. Today is the Tell Del Show, and to share their story with us here today is Bryan and Ginny Maupin, and they've been members now for quite some time. But we want to start back with, why they decided to get invested with real estate. I think it's an interesting story because they were people that grew up around the idea that education was the most important aspect, and their education and their career spans quite a few years, and before they decided that it was time to start investing in something like real estate investing. So let's go ahead and meet Bryan and Ginny. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you very much. We're glad to be here.
Who would like to pick up the early life story of you guys? And the reason we tell these stories, by the way, is simply this. People out there are sitting going, okay, sure, Del did it, these super guys, these rock star guys that own thousands and thousands and thousands of units. I'm just me. I have a job, I've worked my whole life. I've done just like everybody else did it. How can somebody like me ever get there? And then we introduce somebody like you guys, which have, the perfect American story, did the same thing, and yet now you're sitting there with 3,556 units, 31 deals later. The story, to you just seems like, okay, well, we just did it. But to everybody else, that's got to be some massive, massive change in your lives. So let's pick it up from the beginning. Take us from, say, coming out of college or wherever you're, and what you decided your life was going to look like at that time.
Well, Bryan told me I have to do this part. So, Bryan graduated from college in 1969 with a degree in chemical engineering, but of course that was during Vietnam. So he knew he was going to be drafted, and he went into the Air Force. So he went into the Air Force and became a navigator, went to Vietnam, came back, was teaching navigation in Sacramento at Mather Air Force Base when he met me. So we've been married for 44 years now. And then during that time that we were in Sacramento, he decided that he'd like to further his career, and we ended up in Dayton, Ohio, and at the Air Force Institute of Technology, and he got a master's in physics. So then after that, we moved back to California, and he was working on a laser communication satellite project for 4.5 years, and decided that, I'd like to do something else. I don't really want the Air Force dictating to me exactly what I'm going to be doing in the future. So he went to school at night and got some background in his biological sciences, and he was going to go to dental school because my family's background is in dentistry. And he got accepted to dental school, but the Air Force wouldn't let him out to go because he owed 2 more years to the Air Force. And so then he decided, well, instead he'll spend 2 more years in the Air Force and he's going to go to medical school instead. So that's what we did. In 1981, we moved back to Texas, and he went back to Texas A&M, where his original degree was from. And he went to medical school, and we had a 1-year-old and 3-year-old. Don't ask us why we ever did that. I don't know that we would do it again. That was not exactly easy. But then when he was in his residency, he's a radiologist, there was a program that came up that said that he could go back into the Air Force. And so we actually did that. He went back in the Air Force as a major, which, oh my gosh, that was such an improvement in pay, which we really needed at the time. And then when he finished his residency, we moved to Germany for 2 years. That was in 1989 when the wall came down. And then we moved back to San Antonio, and he got a fellowship in interventional radiology, and then he finally retired. So that's kind of like, he decided, he added it up, and he found out that he was 55 years old before he'd been out of school more years than he had been in school. So obviously education was really important in our background, but he still is not retired.
So, Brian,
So
are
do
you
you
just
want
a
more than
bookworm? I was going to ask him, Brian, are you just a bookworm, or do you just have a thirst for new knowledge, or are you just a type A personality that gets bored with whatever it is you're doing? Why so many changes in direction?
I couldn't figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. I had the ability to make the changes, and one thing that I kind of always believed was that I don't ever want to look back and ask what if. If I try and I don't make it, that's one thing. But if you don't try, you never know what could be. And it turns out most of the changes that I made along the way actually put me in a better place each time. So same thing kind of applies to our decision to get involved with lifestyle. That was a big change for us.
Now, currently, you're still operating your practice, I believe. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I work about half-time.
And that's, what kind of a practice is that? Because that's completely something different also, isn't it? Radiology?
Yeah, it's a radiology practice, but we specialize in women's imaging, breast imaging, so mammography, breast ultrasound, those kind of things.
The main thing is there is no call and no weekends. That's really important to us at this stage in our lives.
Yeah, that makes a difference. I know that when I was working 6 days a week, just to be able to have Friday and Saturday off is like my whole world changed. It's almost like not working when you only have to work a couple days a week, and you have the power over your schedule that way. There's no doubt. What was it that started you thinking about alternative investments? And by the way, did you have investments before Lifestyles? Did you have other types of investments?
Yeah, we were. I had IRA, I had a rollover IRA from previous 401k programs, and then when I got into this practice, I set up a SEP IRA. So I had reasonable amount of money into those markets, but it wasn't going to get me where I needed to go. Plus, we had also invested in a bank startup in College Station. We helped start a bank, and so we had stock in the bank. So, but that was pretty much our total package. And in looking at that, it became apparent that if I stopped working, something was going to change. And if we didn't do something before I stopped working to fix our kind of shortfall, then the change was going to be we're going to move off the steak diet and move to Alpo. So it wasn't enough for us to maintain our lifestyle. So.
Oh, man. I've never heard it put quite that way, going from steak to Alpo. So when did you, what triggered that thought process that, hey, if something happens right now, was it an age situation, a health situation? What triggered, that's kind of thought that just it's not there every day until one day it pops up, then it's there every day. What was the thought process that triggered that?
Well, I'd reached a point age-wise where, retirement was a bigger part of my future picture than continuing to work. I was still able to work, and, of course, I'm still working now, but didn't want to keep doing that forever because in spite of the fact I have a lot of free time, I still have times when I have to be at work and I have to coordinate schedules with my partners and stuff like that. So ultimately, I wanted to not be working and just doing whatever I wanted to do in terms of either volunteer stuff or traveling or whatever. And based on what our financial situation was, that wasn't going to be happening in the very near future if we didn't do something different. So the first step was we sold the home we were in and downsized so we could lower our overhead. And it was during that time period where we had the money from that house, and I had taken some money out of an insurance policy, and then we were looking for something, not sure what that was, and then our son dropped something in our lap. He had been involved with Lifestyles for 2 years, but had never said anything. And then finally he said, Dad, he says, I think this works. Let me tell you about it. We listened to the story. We said, well, we had looked at real estate years before, and like a lot of people hadn't done anything. And at this point we said, well, it'll probably be the end of the program. If we join it, it'll it'll fail. It seems like that happens to most of the things we do. But we decided to subject you guys to the risk. So,
all right, well, we're going to take a short break at that point. We're going to go ahead and take a break, Brian. And we'll be right back with Bryan and Ginny and the Del Walmsley Radio Show.
You're listening to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Del will be right back with more life-changing principles in just a few minutes.
Lifestyles Unlimited is the real estate investor education and mentoring group that has been taking people by the hand and teaching them how to invest in real estate for over 25 years. Our students have been so successful at creating wealth and passive income that they've won local, state, and national Investor of the Year awards 10 of the last 10 years. It's easy to see why Think Realty magazine named us the best in the U.S. If you're ready to add real estate to your portfolio, go to lifestylesunlimitedpodcast.com to access our free live training event schedule.
Welcome back. Now here's some more unconventional wisdom to set you free from the man on a mission to retire America, one person at a time, Del Walmsley.
Welcome back to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. With me here today are a couple of Lifestyles ambassadors out of the Dallas area, Bryan and Ginny. Currently own somewhere around 3,556 units. That's 31 deals, 34 different properties. They've sold 4 of these, so they've had some profits. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll get back to the deals. But let's go back where we took a break. You were talking about that your children sprung this on you. Had you unveiled to them that you were looking, or did they just one day get up the guts to sit down and go, hey, Mom and Dad, you got to take a look? How'd that happen?
Well, we had not specifically said, hey, we were looking for something, but it became apparent when we sold the other house and downsized that we were making plans for the next phase in our lives. And I think my son understood that I wasn't real comfortable that I was where I needed to be, but I hadn't specifically said I'm looking for something. But based on his experience, he took it upon himself to at least let us know what he had done and what he was doing so that he could retire. And
how did he approach you with it? I'm just curious. How did he approach you with it? And the reason I bring this up is because I've had this long-standing angst, I guess is the best word for it, that I call it Rule 1437B-7, which is no one will ever believe a thing you say once they've seen you without your clothes on, or more commonly known as familiarity breeds contempt, which in other words comes into a lot of context, but parent-child communication is always a difficult one. I was retired at 34 years of age, and my dad never listened to me. To his death, he worked 60 hours a week and just thought everything I did was just a joke. How did he approach you that was believable? Because I'm asking for all the kids out there that want to help their parents, man. I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for them. What made it believable?
Well, we kind of once he got beyond his teenage years, he actually became a real person. And so, we had a lot of confidence in him. He was being successful in his work. But he just came over one day in September 2015, and we were in our new home and sat down at the kitchen table, and he and Sarah said, well, we'd just like to tell you something we've been doing, and think something you might be interested in, and so here it is. And they laid it out. They've been doing it for a couple of years, and they firmly believed it was their tool to get to retirement, and it turned out it was. So we heard what he had to say, and we went to a case study, and I said, this could work. And so without even going to a 2-day, we wrote a check and joined. Price was getting ready to change, so we, wanted to save some money. And and then a month later we went to the 2-day, and we pretty much haven't looked back since then.
Yeah, and talking about your question, I don't know. I guess it's just knowing Chase and Sarah when they came over to talk to us, and the fact that they'd had experience. Now, if they hadn't had the 2 years experience, it might have been a little different. But since they'd had the experience, we'd go, well, yeah, sure, we'll take a look at this. obviously we haven't been people who wouldn't look at new ideas since we've changed so many other things in our lives over the years. So maybe that's something that's a little different with us is because we've done so many other different kind of careers, and we counted up in our 44 years, we've moved 17 times. So obviously we're used to change in our lives. Maybe that's part of it.
That's a good point, Jenny. That really is. Being open to change like that makes it a lot easier than being somebody like me who I can't stand change. Move the chair in the room and it upsets me for a week, right? So,
well, then you wouldn't want to follow us around, that's for sure.
No, I get in fights with my fiance all the time because she moves stuff just to where I can't find it or just to where it's not where I want it to be. And she says it's just fits better. I go, how can it fit better than the last place we picked? We spent hours figuring out where they should go. Now you say it needs to be someplace else. It just doesn't make any sense. So, but okay, so the kids presented this to you. What was your thoughts when you came to the 2-day? I'm sorry, not the 2-day. Let's start with the free workshop. You went there and joined up right away. What did you think about the free workshop? What was your thoughts then?
Well, actually, we went to case study.
Yeah, I'm sorry, case
workshop.
Study. Case study. Go ahead.
And so we got to meet some people, and we get, you get a sense sometimes from the people you meet, kind of what the nature of certain organizations might be, and we enjoyed the people that we were meeting. Of course, it was still early, and we listened to the short form presentation about the program, and then from that, and based on our son and his wife's experience, we said, I've lost a whole lot more money than this doing something that didn't make as much sense as this appears to make. And so we just went ahead and pulled the trigger and said, we'll get involved and see how it goes.
And never look back.
Now, you couldn't get to the 2-day right away, I think you said. Did you have to wait a month or something to get to the 2-day?
It was about a month. We missed the one in September, and I came the next month. Jenny couldn't make the first day. And so she made the second day, and that kind of reinforced our decision. And then since then, we've done the 2-day 3 other times, one in Houston with you.
So what were your thoughts? I always like to ask people their aha moment. You got people sitting out here who've never been there. They have no idea what they're hearing. What was the highlight that just struck you and said, boom, that's it. That's what we've been missing. That's going to make it happen.
Well, it made real estate make more sense. I had looked at real estate as, buying a house and renting it out or buying houses and flipping them or whatever. I'd never really thought about the bigger picture of multifamily investing. And I wasn't looking for another job. And so the fact that we could do this as passive investors where we work with other people of similar mindset, invest in properties, but I'm not running them, appealed to my lazy side. So that kind of, if you're going to retire, you don't want to retire from one thing into another job.
Yeah.
And I know now better than I knew then how much work it is to actually, be a lead investor or to run your own portfolio of properties.
Yeah. Totally.
And again, we were looking for something, and this looks like, this could be a real vehicle for us. Even though we were looking, we didn't know how to progress. And then suddenly this came up and going, here's something we can learn about and invest through, and it did make sense.
Great. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about what your thoughts were when you first got started, going on road trips and case studies and educational classes and so forth, and how it rounded out and how you got started and did your first deal. So we'll pick all that up when we come back. We'll be right back with Bryan, Ginny, and the Del Walmsley Radio Show.
Listening to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Del will be right back with more life-changing principles in just a few minutes.
Get total freedom in your life, safely and quickly. Build wealth and passive income so you never worry about working until you drop, losing your job, or retiring in poverty. Over 25 years ago, Del Walmsley founded Lifestyles Unlimited. Del has taught over 100,000 people just like me and you the principles of financial freedom through his national radio shows and personal one-on-one mentoring at Lifestyles Unlimited. I'm excited to tell you about the real estate workshop that has changed so many lives. This workshop takes you inside what we do and what we believe. We'll share with you the 5 ways we make money in real estate and much more. Just like your personal trainer, the Lifestyles Unlimited team will motivate, encourage, and teach you so you can get in the best financial shape of your life. Call 866-971-8970 or go to lifestylesunlimitedpodcast.com. That's lifestylesunlimitedpodcast.com to register for the workshop that will change your life. That's lifestylesunlimitedpodcast.com.
Welcome back. Now here's some more unconventional wisdom to set you free from the man on a mission to retire America, one person at a time, Del Walmsley.
Welcome back to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. With me here today on Tell Del's Bryan and Ginny Maupin, the parents of very famous Lifestyles members, Chase and Sarah Maupin, and they got started in the program after Chase and Sarah were kind enough to share with them, you know, the results that they'd had for the first 2 years of being members here. Now, when you guys came out of the 2-day and you started getting involved, I'm kind of curious to see how much did you go on road trips? Did you use the Discover? Did you use the Bridge and take the online learning? What all did you do to get yourself ready to go to make that first investment?
Pretty much everything. I mean, we understood from previous experience the importance of networking, and if you're going to find people to invest with, you have to reach out to them. Okay, that's part of the model. So networking wasn't something that was foreign to us. So yeah, we were active in case studies, road trips, took advantage of the information on the Bridge, began to work our way through the courses so that we could understand the language and evaluate deals and stuff. We had an extra resource, and we could pick our son's, brain on stuff, and that helped us a lot.
Yes, it really did.
But we were, we hit the ground running. Ginny more so than me because she was more available, so she became the face of our effort, and better her face than mine. So that's worked out pretty well. But whenever I can, I'm at the events as well.
So. I don't know which one of you want to answer this. Maybe a touch of both of you on this. Is one of my favorite questions is, were you surprised how open Lifestyles members were? And I caveat that with the fact, well, your kids were already in it, so maybe you just thought that because you had family that was already in it, they were being open to you. But did you realize from the beginning how open people were about their finances and about their deals and about how they operate?
Oh, absolutely. It's just absolutely amazing. I know you talk all the time about the fact that if you have a business A over here and there's the same business B across the street, you're not going to share information. But certainly in this, in Lifestyles, everything is shared, which is amazing. Bryan?
Yeah, it became apparent very quickly that the people were pretty open. There was no, hiding the cards or whatever. We shared information, and a lot of people with more experience than we had at the time when we first got started shared information with us, and subsequently we've done the same for other people that have joined since we got in.
Well, obviously, as being ambassadors, that's what you're doing. The next question is colored by the fact that, unlike most people, they have to go out there and gut it out to make that first decision. Who are we going to give our money to blindly the first time we do this? And I think you guys started with your son, did you not, as your first deal?
Yes, and that was so great because actually we were meeting one time and Charles Ho was telling some people, kind of look at a few deals first before you get in. And he looked at us and he said, so how many deals did you look at? We go, 1. Because it was our sons. So we were so excited that our first deal was a passive, was his first deal as a lead. And we did really well with that one. And it's just been wonderful. It's been just wonderful to see your kids, go on like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing if you think about it. Because I'm older than most people around, but to think about,
not as old as us.
I'd love to have my daughter sending me mail money. Could you imagine that? My daughter sending me a check in the mail. What a thought to have your kids. Hey, Dad, here's for all that electricity and food and schooling and everything you paid for. Here's some money.
Well, he saved his money right off the bat since he came in as a family member, so that was great.
Yeah, the family discount is intended to do what it does, which is to draw families together in the business and build, multi-level, multi-generational, I should say, legacies through families. So I think that's a good thing.
Yes.
So you got into his deal. Let's talk about the first non-family deal you did, because I want to get back to the real throes of things. When you picked your next deal, were you more interested in the deal or in the lead? Which one did you put more weight on when you were picking a deal that wasn't a family member?
Well, what we've done subsequent to our first deal with Chase, and that we continue to do, is we feel that primarily we're looking at the person. If the person's right, and then we look at the deal, because a great person can have a deal that doesn't work for your objectives, but a great deal with a not-so-great person is probably not a good plan. So we look primarily at the person. We try to develop good relationships with pretty much everybody that we come in contact with, but we're really looking at a lot at first-time leads and looking for people with potential. And it's one of the reasons our apartment number, our number of doors isn't really big compared for the number of deals we're in, is a lot of our deals are with first-time leads, and so they're smaller deals.
Now,
that's worked out well for us.
You said that someone in the group mentored you that direction early on. Why don't you share with everybody the theory behind going with the beginner leads as opposed to going with the big studs?
Well, it was Bethany and Gregor Olteig who said something to us. Actually, it was Gregor one time. We were on a road trip early on, and he said, I'm going to be investing with a lot of first-time leads. And he told me why, which made sense. And that was, first of all, like I said, we invest in the person. But if they do well, then you know you're going to be into their next deals. And, of course, they take a smaller override in the beginning as well. So I guess it's just helping those people develop as leads, too, because they need support. So anyway, it just made a lot of sense to us, and a lot of times their deals are smaller, and they turn over quicker. So like I said, we've had 4 deals that have sold, and I think we'll have a couple more this coming year. And again, a lot of times that's because it's a smaller deal and it's a first-time lead. They want to go ahead and roll that over and get into the next deal.
Those are the 3 reasons that I wanted to get out, and you hit all 3 of them. Let's clarify those again. Number 1, as a beginner lead, they take a smaller override. So whatever the profit is, you're getting a larger percentage of that profit if you're going with a first-time lead. Number 2, most of these deals are small and they're looking to get out of them. They're just looking to prove themselves on that first deal. So you get your capital gains profits much quicker in these smaller deals than you do the larger deals. The third one, though, I thought was, I don't know if you hit this one or not, but maybe skirted it, and that is I have found that beginners are more willing to listen to the mentors and to ask questions, whereas you get a lead that's got a couple deals under the belt and they sometimes start getting a little cocky. And I know, right now I'm working on a property myself. It's a $22 million property. I'm buying it all by myself. And the reality is that I've asked everybody I can ask. You say, well, Del, don't you know it all? No. I know the last thing I remembered from the last deal I did, and that's all I know, and everything changes every day, and the market changes, and if you're not out there willing to ask and get mentored, then you're falling behind. If you're not growing, you're falling behind, and I think that's what beginners bring out, is that they're willing to get mentored and get out there and get going. I'm going to take you.
And it's interesting to hear the leads talk to each other as well, because you hear one go, okay, well, I did A, and it worked out really well, and because somebody else is kind of going, hey, has anybody done that? So it's really interesting to hear them talk with each other and, again, see what works and what doesn't work on a project.
in general, they share almost everything. It's really interesting.
Yes.
You know, they're looking for best practices across the board is why, you know, people say, well, why do I have to pay so much to get into lifestyles? You're paying for the education, and you're paying for the security of knowing that everybody else is educated, which is taking the risk factor. I mean, my gosh, if you could put that on any type of a chart with anybody could do any kind of an analysis on what does that lower the risk factors to have people that have had 20-year experienced mentors with them every inch of the way and all these other guys in their same market working with them. I mean, that's really, you're paying for a safety blanket there that's just probably impossible to locate anywhere else. I wanted to ask another question here. It looks like we're coming up to a break. Let's see what it was here. Oh, I know what it was. When we come back, let's give it a break here, and then we'll come back. I want to talk about the availability of deals because, you know, that's one of the first fears is that, oh, my God, what if I can't get a deal? And you're sitting here with 31 deals, right? 34 properties. It doesn't look like getting a deal was a problem for you, so let's come back and talk about that. We'll take a short break. Be right back with Bryan and Ginny Maupin and the Del Walmsley Radio Show.
You're listening to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Del will be right back with more life-changing principles in just a few minutes.
What would happen if you didn't show up for work tomorrow? For the next couple of days? For a week? A couple of months? A year? How long until you lose everything you've worked for in a fraction of the time it took to earn it? If this fear keeps you up at night, it's time to learn the strategies we teach at Lifestyles Unlimited. Start with the free workshop. Go to lifestylesunlimitedpodcast.com and find your true financial peace, like so many of our members already have. That's lifestylesunlimitedpodcast.com.
Welcome back. Now here's some more unconventional wisdom to set you free from the man on a mission to retire America, one person at a time, Del Walmsley.
Welcome back to Del Walmsley Radio Show. With me here today on Tell Del is Bryan and Ginny Maupin. Currently, they have, well, I guess they only have 27 deals left. They had 31. They sold 4, and they have around 3,556 units, doing quite well as passives. And we have them here today sharing their story with us. When we went to break, I told you what I'd like to talk about next is one of the fears that I hear all the time when people come in is that, well, how am I going to get a deal? How many deals are there? How hard is it to meet these people? You know, every negative thing you can possibly come up with, guys, is to talk themselves out of actually doing something. What did you find the deal availability to be, the networking possibilities to be? How did it work out for you guys? Because you got a lot of deals, so.
Well, the networking is a key part of it. Our first deal was pretty easy to come by, as we've already talked about. But in 2016, we got the first deal in January, and by the end of the year, we had 10. In 2017, we slowed down a little, only ended up with about 6. But then in 2018, kind of picked up again. We're actually have 17 deals in 2018, a couple of which have happened since you got our original numbers. So we're now in 29 active deals and just over 3,900 doors.
Okay.
So our problem is not deal availability; it's to be money availability.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. How do you decide your deal flow? Is it from when the cash availability comes up that you have something to work with, or some other plan of action as to how you timed how many you would do each at any moment?
Well, we were looking really, I mean, if we have money and we're looking to deploy it, then we're just looking for the best deal that's available at the time, the one that fits, you know, what we're looking for. Earlier this year, I mean, you mentioned that we were involved with a bank, and we actually sold that bank stock at a pretty significant capital gain, and that's what's fueled our activity this year. And we still have a little bit more deployable cash, and then we're going to be dependent upon things turning over again to bring, you know, new capital in to be reinvested.
Now, I notice that you're still working part-time. Are you doing that because you enjoy it, or are you doing that because it's a safety valve in your brain, it's an insurance package? What's the theory of continuing to put some time into employment? Not that it's a bad thing,
by the way. Well, it's still kind of a safety valve, and the other part of it is, although I don't work that much, I get paid pretty well for what I do, and so we're not at the point yet where you say if I quit working tomorrow that I wouldn't miss that income. We're close. We're getting there, but we're not there yet. So it's a bit of a safety valve. And
especially that all the deals that we've gotten into this year, obviously most of them are not paying yet. They will shortly, but they need to start paying before he can retire.
Yeah, that's an important point for everybody to understand. There's a time lag between when you buy them and when they're turned around and they start making money on a regular basis. So that's a very good point. I've always thought that having a cash business along with an investment business is important. That's why I have a consulting business. It gives me something to do also. And you think about it, hey, I got to get out of bed and 3 days a week and go to work, or 4 days a week, whatever you're doing, and it's bringing me in $250,000 a year. That's not bad, when you look at it that way. A lot of people would love to have that gig, I'm sure. So that's a good thing. Let's talk about next. What's the plan for the future here?
Well, I mean, we've got to get some of these things to mature, and then I'm going to reevaluate things this summer. I'm looking to cut back a little bit this summer, and then we'll reevaluate over the next year after that happens, and then see if I'm going to stay at that level or back out and from medicine altogether and move on to doing something else part-time. Keep me off the streets and out from under Ginny's feet.
Yes.
I hear that all the time, too. Let's talk about it as we finish this thing up here. You've got a legacy. The family's already doing it. What about being an ambassador? What does that mean to you guys to be an ambassador for Lifestyles Unlimited?
We absolutely love giving back. It's been so much fun. And when we do go to meetings, the kind of meetings we try and go to is we try to go to the multifamily orientation meetings, go to the second day of the 2-day and go to lunch with people who are looking at this program, and then also a lot of the intro meetings, so that people can just talk to a normal member of Lifestyles. And it's so nice. We like to tell people who said, we're just here to share with you what it's been like for us, because it doesn't make any difference to us whether you get in or not as far as our bottom line. We don't have any projects for you to invest in. So we can just share and be very honest about our time in Lifestyles. And it's been really fun, and I guess probably because people really like that. They like to be able to talk to somebody who's in and going, has it really worked for you? It's been nice.
How do they react to that? When you tell them you have no dog in the hunt, I guess is to say, you have no reason to try to get them to join up, yet you're there sharing your time with them. What does that make them think? A little suspect at first, or not?
Oh, no, I don't think so at all. I think they appreciate the fact that we're just there just to share. We're just trying to help them out if they have some questions. And a lot of times people just want to ask you questions that they're not willing to ask somebody who's actually on the staff of Lifestyles. And we're happy to share that.
Well, I really appreciate you guys doing that for us, being an ambassador. I also appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story on the radio. And I look forward to more and greater successes for you and your family. And as we go from there, remember, folks, it's not the money, it's the lifestyle. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you for listening listening to the Del Walmsley Radio Show, teaching you the opposite of everything you've been taught so you can obtain the results you've never obtained. Join us 7 days a week. Can't get enough? Visit DelOnTheRadio.com to listen to the Del Walmsley Radio Show, access past show podcasts, and join the conversation.
The information and opinions you hear on the Del Walmsley Radio Show are those of the host, Del Walmsley, his guests, and his callers, and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this station, its affiliates, its management, or advertisers. The Del Walmsley Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented on the Del Walmsley Show constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.